Welcome, everyone. Hey, this is a podcast that explores various aspects of addiction, potentially focusing on personal stories of recovery, scientific perspectives, societal impacts, or related topics. This podcast often features discussions with experts, individuals in recovery, therapists, and advocates to offer insights and support to those affected by addiction or seeking more information about it. Welcome to another episode of The Other Side of Addiction. I am your host, Al Richards, and today we're going to be talking about the experience in life through the soul with our guest, Whitney Huff. Whitney, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thanks, Al. I'm glad to be back again. It's
I
awesome.
know, second time. It's been a long time, right? It was almost
Yeah,
a year and a half or 2 years ago. 2 years.
yeah, probably. Yeah, I was pregnant last time I was on there with Jamie. So yeah, it's been about 2.5 years.
Yeah, matter of fact, we just hit our third year this month doing this podcast. I'm just still in awe that it's still going.
Congratulations. Of course it is. It's a
Yeah,
big thing.
thank you. You know, I was impressed with you, Whitney, the first time that we met. And Jackie was there, and Janie was there, and we had a really good discussion on stuff that Janie was working on, and I was just so impressed with you because you have taken those her concepts of life and the way the brain works, and the way, I don't know, just your soul and your spirit. And I'm just sitting there in awe going, holy crap, this girl gets it, man. She's absorbed it like a sponge. And it's been a huge part of your journey and your recovery. Is that correct?
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's learning for me the way the brain, Janie's got her series of 5 books that goes through how the brain and body works, and you learn how you get programmed, right? We're programmed by the time we're 8 years old, and then we take on these storylines, right? And whatever's going on in our life, we're telling ourselves a story in the back of our mind, and it's all automatic program. So we're just become almost, unfortunately, robots, right? Because it's just doing the same thing over and over. And as we're learning new things, we're consciously learning. We're consciously aware. So we're focused on it. It's like finding an address, right? You're paying attention to what street you're on and looking, then you drive it a few times and you've got it, right? And that's the way we learn. And so when that concept hit me, I was like, oh my gosh, and then to learn about neuro linguistic programming and the words we use, I can start to listen to myself speak and identify programs and core beliefs, right? And some that are no longer beneficial in my life, to rewrite that story. We're born with two fears: the fear of falling and the fear of loud noises. And if you think of that on a grand scale, like all these other fears, I've created them.
Yeah, all in here.
And so if I created them, I can create something else, right? I can rewrite that storyline that's in my head, right? I have to go to work. Oh, I get to go to work. And just notice how that resonates in your body. I get to do this. Even if it's something you're not super excited about, like I get to do this versus I have to, your body responds differently. So then you show up differently. And just learning these different concepts and the way we speak and to be able to correspond with people in a different way just opened up doors. My relationship with my mom was very unhealthy for a long time. I was trying to change her and I was working through my hurts. And, when I changed the way I have that conversation with my mom or correspond with my mom, I get a different outcome, right? We talk about totalities and whole systems, and an event is a whole system and it has 3 separate elements. The state of your mind, your emotional conditioning creates your beliefs of the outcome. And so when I could put that together and realize, hey, what's my mental state at? What's my emotional conditioning? And I can create a different outcome. And that's based upon past events, right? Even some of the hurt and trauma, if I can find the gift in it and what there was to learn from that, I get a completely different outcome and I grow and evolve as a soul because I just simply change the storyline about that event.
Yeah. Well, and really, and correct me if I'm wrong, Whitney, because you have a lot more experience on this than I do. There is a lesson behind all of it, right? And again,
Absolutely.
you just said if you take your time and you really start paying attention, my buddy Cap, who I used to work with, we used to say all the time, look at the message in the mirror. By basically look at yourself in the mirror and you say, what is the lesson behind this? This is happening to me or for me, happening
Yeah.
for me for a reason. What is this reason? And you may not get it immediately, and it's okay. It may take a week. Heck, sometimes I've had things 2 months down the road, all of a sudden, bing, it kicks in, and I'm going, oh my heck, that's why this happened, right? Because you find yourself in that situation because of this that led you to that.
Absolutely. And just taking a brief minute, because as humans, we process things so subjectively through our storyline. And we kind of talked before the podcast just about, you know, watching loved ones go through struggles with addiction or anything really, and then working with other people and their families and going through it. It's so much easier to give advice to our friends till we're going through it. Now all of a sudden it's a different story. It's because we become subjective, and all this advice we can give to other people, it's truly the best advice for ourselves. So anytime we're giving advice to someone, that really is the best advice for yourself, because it's going through your storylines and your filters and your programs, and you're giving yourself the answer. So if we
Yeah.
listen to ourselves speak even to other people, we have an opportunity to realize, hey, and that's a big thing for me that helps me stay on my path, is when I'm teaching, it's an opportunity for me to look in the mirror and work through my own stuff. And I don't want to be telling other people something that I'm not willing to do myself, or I'm not working on myself. And I'm not perfect at it by any means. I'm still very human, and work to overcome these things and grow and evolve. But when we stop and listen to ourselves or reflect, if we don't have a solution, we're asking the wrong questions.
Yeah. So true. I've been learning some stuff here lately, and I don't know if you've heard of the Cartman triangle.
Uh-uh.
Yeah, so it's Cartman with a K, so Karpman triangle. Google it, and it has these two triangles. One is goes down, the other one goes up, and the bottom one at the very point of the triangle going down is victim. Then there's rescuer, and then there's persecutor.
Oh, yeah.
The arrows all intertwined together. So basically, you're going. It's like the hamster wheel, right?
Yep.
And for with what I have learned, and you touched base on it at the beginning, certain words and how we react to different things. I can now be in a grocery store at the gym and hear someone having a conversation, and I can go, yeah, they're playing the victim. Uh-oh,
Mhm.
now they're the rescuer. Nope, now they're back to victim. And I have started paying attention, just like what you said. I started paying attention to my own thoughts and my own words. And I've shared this with some people about this triangle, and I had somebody call me out on it the other day, and they're like, "From what you told me, aren't you playing the victim right now?" And I went, "Oh my hell, yes, I am."
Yeah.
Right. So thank you for pointing that out, because now I'm going to pay closer attention to what I'm saying. And your husband pointed something out to me when I had him on the show about the word "but,"
Yeah.
how it cancels things out. It's like, um, if you're my wife and I say I love you, but you really ticked me off, I just canceled out I love you. Now, if I go,
Yeah.
you really ticked me off, but I love you, now I canceled out that you really, and I had no clue on that. Sorry is another one I've taken out of my vocabulary. The word hate is definitely one I took way, even if I even using the word like I hate my shoes. You have just put a negative feeling out there in the universe and in your head, even as innocent as it sounds.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. It's the way we speak about ourselves. I I love Dr. Emoto's water experiment,
right?
and it's like, if you really take a look at that and those snowflakes that get frozen, think about just even the stuff we don't say out loud, but our thoughts we have about ourselves and how that's affecting us and how much stronger we respond to stuff positive. And somebody could give you 5 compliments and tell you how much they love your show and how great it is to get to know you, but I really don't like your shirt. Like,
Yeah.
what do you focus on? All the other stuff's out the window, and we focus on that one thing. And some people look at it as criticism, or it could just be feedback. Does that hit you different when, hey, can I give you some feedback? Or hey, they just gave me some feedback. And you're absolutely right when you talk about, whatever happens in our life, instead of saying, why is this happening to me? What is there to teach me? What do I have to learn from this? And as we go through these struggles, me and Colby always say, oh geez, I got more potential, right? There's more
Yeah.
potential to be harnessed. And we're gonna struggle and get uncomfortable because that's part of our souls evolving and stepping in to stuff. And we go through these different phases and evolve as souls on this human experience, right? And
Yeah.
so things come to shake us up, right? And at the same time, there's so much feedback coming in all the time that it doesn't have to get to some catastrophe before you recognize it. And it's okay if it does end up a catastrophe, right? It's all an opportunity to grow and evolve, right? If we're more aware and listening to our linguistics, we don't have to struggle as much as humans.
Yeah. I also think we could be a lot happier than what we really are, and all of us have done this, especially I know myself, is how we hang on to past events, right? And
Yeah.
it doesn't matter how it could have been a year ago, it could have been 4 years ago, it could have been 10 years ago. And how we hang on to it and it affects our life today. There was some stuff that happened in my life here quite a few months ago that it's like every word that I said was being analyzed. And it took me some time to figure it out. And it's like there must be some really bad past trauma that I don't know what it is that this person is doing everything they can to look for these flags, right? And they're going to do, if they're looking for them, they'll do everything they can to
Yeah.
find them. They'll turn over every single rock to find those flags when they're missing everything that's great. And I'm not saying that I was the great, right? I'm just saying that
Yeah. Yeah.
they're missing so many possibilities that's in front of them because they're too busy looking under every rock for that flag. And I had a discussion with somebody about a week ago about that. And and this individual, she said the same thing. She goes, sometimes we're too busy looking for red flags that we're missing amazing things in our life. And again, it's that program in here. And until we start recognizing it, which going through the Cartman's triangle, I started recognizing how many times during the day I'm either the persecutor, the rescuer, or the victim
Yeah.
throughout the whole day, multiple times, and not realizing it, right? And instead of stopping ourselves and going, okay, I don't want to be in this triangle. I want to be in this triangle. I want to be a challenger. I want to be a champion. I want to be a hero, basically, right?
Well, and part of that is looking at it, the victim, the persecutor, and the rescuer, those are all pride and ego, right? That's where our pride and ego comes into play because there's some unhealed part of us, right? That we're not willing to look at. So if I rescue you, I'm going to feel better about myself, right? If I can play the victim, I'm going to feel better about myself. It's that storyline that's going on in our head, but we're
Hmm.
stuffing that stuff down. And when you talk about these traumas, like this stuff gets stored in our body, right? Emotions or trapped emotions, if you look at the word emotion, it's energy in motion. And so when we stuff things down or there's an unhealed thing that, and some of us, a lot of us, didn't have proper coping skills to deal with
Mhm.
things that came up in our life. So we did the best we could with what we had, right? And then it became a program. And that program probably worked for a point in our life, whether it's, activating the limbic system and we get stuck in survival, the fight or flight or freeze mode, right? A lot of us respond to these hurts and pains in our lives. And then that becomes programmed and we just build upon it. And now it's a subconscious program that we're not even aware of a lot of the time. It's just unconsciously functioning. And then as it gets louder and builds up, then we're like, oh, geez, I got to do something, right? But that tolerance effects kicks in and we start to put up with things that we normally wouldn't put up with, or either blame others or beat ourselves up, right? And so it's all that pride and ego that comes into play that still serves a purpose, right?
Of
But when
course.
you can look at it, hey, there's an opportunity to learn, then you can grow from it, right? And it's all part of the journey and evolvement, and at the same time, like being aware of the hard things we can get through, is that choose your hard concept, right?
Yeah. Yeah. We like to use this phrase in this thing that I'm doing. Depends on which wolf you want to feed, right? And I think you know that
Absolutely.
story of, the Indian and his son sitting there and watching these two wolves, and the dad says it determines on which wolf you want to feed. Do you want to constantly feed the black wolf that's constantly causing you trauma and turmoil and pain and anguish and anxiety and you know health issues, right? Because all that stuff creates health issues. Or do you want to feed the one where that's what they do? You've said it many times. What's the message behind this? What can I learn from this? So next time when this happens, because it will, that's just how life works, I can handle it differently. And guess what? You'll make another mistake during that.
Mm-hmm.
And then you're going to look at the lesson behind that and you're going to move on. And then another mistake. It's it's that snowball effect. We're going to constantly be moving as we learn the lessons. And unless we learn that lesson, we're going to be stuck right in that same spot for a long time.
Yeah. And it's being, we've talked about it, like being in alignment with yourself and listening to your soul and what inspires you and following that. And if you're following that, it will work out. It really will. It gets uncomfortable because as we're growing and stepping into these new things, like it's uncomfortable because it's new, right? And we're having to learn how to do these things and navigating it. And at the same time, you can feel it because you're excited about it. You get energized from it, right? You can work day till night when you're doing your podcast and doing all these meetings versus other things in your life, right?
Yeah.
And some things just got to get done. You will naturally feed your soul that energizes you. And as long as you're staying in alignment with that, it will work out. And it's all just messages, in my opinion, from the universe. Like what, follow, work your light, follow what lights you up.
Yeah. Amen. And this is what's helped you throughout your journey of recovery, right? Because and I love that you brought up at the beginning of the show, and we can get into that here just a little bit. But the recovery community that's here in Utah, I think, is a damn good community.
Yeah.
We're all there to help one another. However, I have also seen where we point fingers at other people because of their journey and their recovery. And
Mm-hmm.
this is what I learned in about 3 or 4 months of doing this show. When I first started, I'm like, I don't know how long it'll last because it seems like these stories are the same. I'd have a guest on that talk about living on the streets, doing this, doing that. Have another guest on that talk about coming from a broken home, living on the streets, this. And it took at least another couple months before my light bulb went off. And I went, oh my gosh, every single person had a different journey. What worked for this person didn't work for this one. This is how they had to go. So, as people who have battled addiction, we we don't like our family members or friends saying, why can't you just do this, and why don't you do this, and you should do that. Yet we get ourselves in recovery and we're working on ourselves and we're doing really good, and then we turn around and we do that to other people in recovery.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't understand why we are doing that, because again, we're putting that stigma back there. We got to get rid of the stigma. And that even means in the recovery community ourselves. And I'm not saying everyone does it, because they don't. However, there are a few that do, that I've had people say AA is the only way. It's the only way. You will not make it unless you do AA. Well, guess what? It worked for you, and it worked for thousands and thousands of it. It saved so many lives. But I interviewed so and so, and all it did was piss them off,
Yeah.
you
Yep.
know?
And you've said that, about Al-Anon, like
I
you
would
didn't like going
absolutely.
to Al-Anon.
Yep.
And at the same time, Al-Anon for me was so cool to see how I affected other people, because I didn't want to look at that or even have awareness of it, honestly, to a degree, like consciously being aware of how I affected other people, until like watching my brother go through it and experiencing the worry and the pain of, watching someone I'm so close with in that desperation of trying to help them.
Yeah.
And, it's, we had talked about, I've done AA and it was great and it worked for me. And then I used it to avoid myself. I was doing treatment team meetings and going to all these meetings and blah, 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 and I wasn't being honest with myself about my intention of being there. Right. So could that have been more beneficial for me? Absolutely. What was I talking about in those meetings? Who was I surrounding myself with? Right. People with a solution or not. And at the same time, like I know the big book, like I know Janie's books, and it served a great purpose in my life. And there's things that I still use from it. Right. And at that time I was like, AA is the only way, and so I watched my own recovery journey evolve. And then, my brother's experience of why you just getting clean and going and hanging out with a bunch of addicts. And I'm like, this is the only place I feel like I can be myself at. And we get stuck in these paradigms, right? And we're not, it's like a horse with the blinders on. It's, stay on this path. And at the same time, I was so desperate to stop living the way I was living. I was listening to whoever would, and then I'd stay at treatment centers for, stay at a residential for 5 months. And I'm so scared, like, go to my therapist. What should I do about this? And I struggle now with that, saying your first thought's wrong. Cause I'm like, I became, and that's just for me on my journey, right? I became so codependent on a therapist telling me what to do next. What's my next step? What do I do with this? I stopped thinking for myself and listening to myself and just doing whatever somebody else told me. Cause if not, I'm going to go back out and relapse. Right. And so I lost my ability to think for myself and find my own solutions through that. And that was just my journey. Right. And so then I got pretty jaded by therapists, and then I found matter, and it was just like, this is so cool. Like we're talking quantum physics and, oh my gosh, I can bring my oracle cards here and do my readings. And, I'm doing these awesome techniques and learning quantum physics and about the brain and how it works. And I just got sucked in because, through my upbringing, that's, even through my rocky relationship with my mom, we're going to rock shows every time they came, and I'm watching psychic mediums with her, James Von Prague and Sylvia Brown. Like that's how I grew up, and not even recognizing that at the time, that's the kind of stuff that lights the fire in my soul. It just ignites it, and so when I found this place that really nurtured those things, and I could be out grounding and hugging a tree, and nobody's just like, oh cool, we're all standing outside getting saged, and it was just like, okay, these are my people. I found my soul tribe. Like this is amazing. And then to get an opportunity to work there and walk other people through it and teach them the things that I've learned, and it was just this completely different experience. So then I start bad mouthing therapists, and and it's just like, and then I started struggling again after, I left. I got into a really dark place mentally. it was a big lifestyle change. I'm like, oh my gosh, here goes my purpose. What do I do with my life? Like, this is everything I ever wanted. Like, and now it's just, I mean, I was just in a very heavy place trying to figure out what's next for my life. And I went back to therapy after bad mouthing it for so long, and it was just another tool in recognizing things that help me and being willing to do different things at different points in my life. Throughout my whole life in addiction, I worked 2 to 3 jobs and held them and kept my house. And so going to detox or to treatment once I could find the funding for it, or going to Matter with no funding and they accepted me, like, that's how I told people to get clean, and not realizing that I was stigmatizing things, and now working at a opioid treatment program that offers medication assisted treatment. Like, I've watched some people very close and dear to me use that and use it as a tool, right? And just watching other people in life, and now becoming a mother. Like, since I was 17 years old, I haven't had a relationship longer than 6 months. I mean, up until I was 36, it was just been me, just doing my thing, whatever I want to do. And it's like, now I've met the love of my life and I have a partner. And you know had a Reiki appointment today, and she's like, I remember the day I asked you if you had kids and you told me you're never going to have kids. And I was just like, my work's my purpose, because it always has been. I just enjoyed working, right? And so watching other people come in and realizing, like, what do you do with your kids? My blinders were lifted, and finding more empathy to find treatment for moms with their children. Like, that's such a barrier to people getting help in recovery, right?
Yes.
And domestic violence, and what these women do when they have these children. And it's just, there's so many barriers, and realizing that I was stigmatizing the way other people are finding and doing recovery based upon my own story and how I found it. And so I'm really working now and passionate about being a resource for whatever you think will work for you right now. Let me hold space. And if what I have to offer isn't the best fit for you, let me guide you to these people that might be a better fit for you, instead of, no, this is the way it needs to be.
Yeah.
This is how you do it. Because we're all such unique souls and learn differently and have different callings and unique qualities and talents. And we were at the peer conference, and I remember this lady, she was up there speaking about how to tell your story. And she goes, you realize when you're talking about yourself and your active addiction and calling yourself a liar and a thief and a piece of crap and just all the things that we normally talk about in our story about ourselves and the things we're doing, realizing that that's what we're calling people that are still in active addiction and still struggling with these things. It's like, when you're talking about yourself in that form, there's people out there still struggling that you're saying that to. And it's like, whoa, that's not helpful for me. That's not helpful for them. And it just brought awareness that, like, how much, I've stigmatized other people's pathways to recovery, or even their own journeys, because I had my blinders on. And then the universe will throw me reasons to open my
Yeah.
eyes and expand my horizons, and it's like, okay,
Yeah.
there's a there's a plethora of ways of achieving the same goal. And my goal now is to be a resource for whatever that looks like for you, and to create connections in a community to be able to assist people in whatever they need. People working and have slip ups and can't go to treatment or afford treatment. Like, there's so many barriers to people getting treatment or getting jobs or all these other things that get to be brought awareness to. And And I know there's resources out there to help them. And so to find those resources, it's, it's amazing. And the recovery community in Utah is amazing.
Yeah,
And
it is. And like you just said, there's so many other resources, right? Science has come a long ways in the past 10 years. And I wasn't doing what I'm doing now 10 years ago. I didn't start this journey until 3 years ago. And seeing what I have seen just in this short period of time, learn what I have learned in this short period of time, and the relationships that I've built in this short period of time, there's so much more out there
yeah,
that we don't know about. And you just said it, right? There's so many different things. There's which would be hard for someone who shot themselves up with heroin or whatever, but there's certain IV treatments that are long, they're 4 to 6 hours, that scientific proof behind it and studies with,
mhm,
I mean, it could happen within the first day, it could happen within the first 3 days where it takes the cravings completely away, right? And there's more of the holistic stuff that's going on. I mean, you're learning, you've learned all the holistic and how the brain works. And my version of it is that I think that's where everything starts, is in the brain. You
yeah,
know, it's a muscle, and it's something just like all the other stuff in our bodies, right? And there's so many other ways, like you said, to get to where you want to go. I mean, if there's a flag at the very top of a mountain, some people are going to climb up the cliffs to get to that flag. Other people will take a road. Some will take a path. Some will go through the desert first before they get to the mountain. Some may go on the east side instead of the west side. However, they're still going to get to that flag,
yeah.
and we, a lot of us tie our shoes differently. I tie my shoe, and I was watching my grandson tie his shoe a couple of weeks ago, and I'm like, well, that's a weird way of tying a shoe. However, he tied his shoe.
Yeah,
So who am I to judge it,
yeah,
right? It works for him, and he still has his shoe tied. So again, we have to stop that judgment and that judging of
yeah. There you
other
go.
people's journey, right? Because it if it works, it works. I mean, look how many people cook differently, right? The way I cook a steak may be different that you cook a steak, but when we eat it, holy crap, it's still delicious.
Oh yeah. And that's with Colby, me and Colby's relationship. Like we have so much in common, but our way of achieving things is the most complete opposite you could even fathom. It's we are exact opposites in the way we do things. I'm low and slow and want to take all the data and find all the details. It's like jump into action, we're going. I'm like, oh, and he's like, come on, let's go. And so when we're healthy and can correspond, we naturally nurture each other and create a healthy balance of these things. But when we're judging someone's way of accomplishing it, it builds conflict. So when we can step back and and sometimes when we're arguing about the same thing, which is the end goal, and our different ways of saying it. We can't hear each other. So someone comes in, it's like, you guys are saying the same thing, you know that, right? And it's like, oh, thank you.
Yeah, yeah, right.
And it's such a beautiful it's a beautiful thing when the universe is just so vast, and its amount of feedback and symbolisms and the way it speaks to us if we're open and willing to see it and hear it.
Just think, and I know you know this because of all the studying that you've done, Whitney, but just think of how amazing this world would be, and everyone's relationship, right? And I'm not talking relationship as far as partners, because some
Mhm.
people just don't mix, the chemistry just don't mix. However, when you have a partnership like you and Colby, where you understand that, right?
Yeah.
And I've got some good friends that live in Canada, and it's so cool to watch those two, right? Because sometimes they talk over one another and stuff, and it's like, no, 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 wait a minute. No, I want to get my story out, and they just joke about it because they know who that person is. And I've seen them to where they've said something, and the other one goes, no, 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 remember, and this is how we did it. Yeah, and so many relationships and other types of relationships, and I've been just as guilty of it, where that ego kicks in, and it's like we're
Mm-hmm.
so busy trying to say, no, look, this is the way you go because I know, right? Because this is my journey. It's got to be
Yeah.
your journey
Yeah.
too. When you have that understanding, I think it makes life so much easier. And going back to the soul, the experience of soul. And I tell you what, ever since I just thrown in the frickin' towel and just said, okay, God,
Yeah.
I'm just gonna go. I'll wake up every day. I'm just gonna do what I'm supposed to do, go the direction you're asking me to go. And because every time I have said, nope, 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 I'm not going this way. No, no, thanks. This is the direction I'm going. I find myself going, yeah, I should have listened.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the thing about our intuition. We'll get it, but then it diminishes, right? And how often we're able to listen to it. And and you just said it. That's the key is let me get out of my own way. Let me get my human out of the way and let my soul drive, right? And it's free will versus divine will. And you put something in Google Maps and it's taking you there, and you decide you have a better way and take a left turn, you can still get to that end destination. And that's, divine will versus free will. Like I can get there and it might hit some bumps and a pothole and whatever. I'm the one cursing myself out because I took the wrong turn. All Google Maps is doing is, oh, reroute, reroute, reroute. And that's the way, this divine will works. And in my beliefs and my experience, right? Our guides and spirit guides and angels, right? They have to honor our free will. And so when we ask them and give them permission from our free will to step in and work with us side by side instead of out here, it becomes a different experience. And then we get more in tune with this divine will and our soul's calling and our soul's purpose because we're actively using our free will to ask for this guidance. And then it creates, before what you were talking about, whatever we're looking for, we're going to get. That's just,
Mhm.
the subconscious brain is taking in 400 million bits of information. It's all in there. We have the answers, we have the solutions. We know all of this remembering from before we came here. So whatever we're seeking, we're going to find. So if we can use that in so many ways. And if we're asking for divine guidance and getting more in tune with our soul, it becomes a direct line of communication that we can listen to and live through and live out our experience. Where would you have me go? What would you have me saying to whom? Right?
Yeah.
Use them to speak through you and be a conduit through your truth. It's going to guide you to who needs to hear your story and what part of it. And they show up. And if we're aware of it, right? You go to a meeting or go to something and you're like, oh, that's exactly what I needed to hear today, right? You could have 500 people in that room. You're going to hear exactly what you need to hear, and everybody's going to have a different experience because of the story and their own filtering process, right?
Yeah.
And so if we just show up as our most best and authentic self and be open, it works out the way it's supposed to work out every single time.
It does. And you said it just a little bit ago, Whitney. It's getting out of our own heads, getting out of our way. I had someone train me years ago. First time I was really kind of getting into some coaching and having some coaching done, and he was basically telling me how the spirits will talk to you, right? And I've been somewhat probably more of a religious type person at that time than I was spiritual. Now
Mhm.
I've switched. I'm more spiritual than I am
Mhm.
religious. And he's like, your guidance, whatever you want to call it, your spirit, your holy angel, whatever it may be, it'll tell you this way, that way, no, yes. Simple. Come to me a week later and we'll discuss it. And I went to him a week later and I said, Robert, man, I'm confused. He's like, why are you confused? I don't understand. Explain. I'm like, something would tell me to turn here. And then I was like, well, why do I want to turn? I don't want to turn. This is the direction I need to go. So then I'd go that direction. He goes, no, 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 you're not getting it. That's you talking in your head. That's you trying to analyze what's
Yeah.
going on. And we do that throughout our whole life with relationships and business deals and different things, right? If we get out of our own effing way and just allow the process to happen, it will not lead us wrong. It will not. And we may not reach where we want to go, and it's okay because we had to travel this far to get the lesson before we can divert to go the direction that we really need to go, right? So for our listeners to
Absolutely.
understand what Whitney are saying, it's not going to be rainbows and unicorns every single
Yeah.
time, right? Because life is life. However, you are supposed to go where that the thorns are. You're
Well,
supposed
and if you can take a step back and even look at our lives, all of us, look at it objectively and how some of those hard things that we went through, right? And in that moment, it's heavy to walk through those things, right? And it's like you feel like you're drowning in it and you're never going to get out of it. And then you get out on the other side and you look back and it opened up a door to so many different things, a new job, a new relationship, or right, opportunities. But when you're in it, it feels heavy and consuming and like you're drowning, right?
yeah,
But if it will lighten the load if you can say those things. I get to walk through this, right? This is I have more potential. Doesn't mean those emotions and those feelings don't go away. It just makes it simpler to walk through because your body's responding differently to it. Instead of shoving it down, you're starting to gain that emotional intelligence and navigating your way through it and connecting to your soul, and even just having that belief system of it's divinely guided or there's purpose here, like,
yeah,
and being self-aware and authentic through it, right? We're staying out of that judgment or those pride and ego things and checking in with yourself, because when the human's talking, it's usually pride and ego, right? And we
yeah,
get so programmed in this world, and when we take the opportunity, and so many of us have just, because nobody teaches us how our brain and body works and how we correspond and communication and emotional intelligence, like it's just not talked about. And even as we get more comfortable with these things, like your friend had said, like, talk to your spirit guides, listen to your intuition, like muscle test, look up kinesiology. Anything you want to know the answer to, your body already knows. Whether it's food you eat, should I take this job, is it in my highest good? Your body and soul already have the answer for your best and highest good, and your body will respond to that through muscle testing and kinesiology. Do I need this vitamin today? Ask your body. It will tell you what it needs. Is this food? Should I buy this food? Is this healthy for me? Your body knows. And that is a big key for some people, is when they can feel the evidence of their body responding to these things. Pick up a pack of cigarettes or a soft drink and ask if it's healthy for you. And then go pick up some fruits and vegetables. Ask your body and watch yourself go back and forth.
oh yeah,
Right? And these things just aren't taught. And so when it's like you have these solutions that your body knows what's the best thing for you and what it needs, like, start guiding your life through getting to know yourself, because that's the biggest key. A lot of us just don't know ourselves, and we're running on these auto programs and coping the best we can with what we have. And as soon as we start to learn about ourselves, we can navigate through life a lot better.
yeah. And with what you just said, Whitney, I want to share something real quick as an example. For last umpteen years, even as I started this podcast 3 years ago, I've been doing all kinds of odd stuff, help my brother grow his concrete business. And, you know, over a year ago, a little over a year ago, whether I was doing some home remodel stuff, and I'm very grateful that I had a job because it's bringing money in to pay my bills. Every day I did not want to go. I'm like, I just don't want to fricking go. I don't want to do this type of work anymore, even though I enjoyed working with my hands. However, being the age that I'm at, this physical labor is really starting to run me down. Even though I stay in shape and I work out, it's different, right? When you're kneeling down, standing up, kneeling down, standing up, going
Yeah.
up and down stairs all day long. carrying plywood, 2x4s, this, that, and the other thing. Same with concrete. I'm telling myself constantly, I don't want to be here. I don't want to be here. I got to stop doing this. Got to stop doing this. It just kept getting worse, right? That negativity, that
Mm.
I don't know, anger of just getting up every day to have to do this, have to do this, not need to do it, have to do this.
Mhm.
And I was talking to my buddy one day, and I can't remember what we were discussing. We're at work, and he said something that really resonated with me, and it totally flipped me, just like that. It flipped me, and I'm going, I know this. I know this. I needed
Mhm.
this reminder. I'm like, you know what? From here on out, tomorrow morning, I'm going to wake up and I'm going to go, I am so grateful that I got this job because it's given me money to pay my bills. I may not be where I'm at right now, but I will get there. I will be there. And then here it is, 4 months ago, everything
Yeah.
just changed in the direction that I was hoping to go. I was holding myself back all this time because of how I was thinking of not wanting to go to work every day instead of going, I get to go to work every day. Thank you, God, for giving me this work. Thank you for this job. I'm grateful for it. Living in gratitude every single day.
Yeah.
And all of a
Gratitude.
sudden, all these chess pieces are landing in front of me right at the right time. And all I did was change my thinking. All. That's all I've done.
Yeah,
It freaking works.
absolutely. And we're governed by universal laws, right? We talk about the law of attraction and stuff, but nobody talks about the law of resonance, right? So much happened when The Secret came out and people learning about the law of attraction and manifesting, which is super amazing. It's so cool. But what happens when we put that out there, these ideas and things, right? We're like, ooh, law of attraction, I'm going to manifest this. It's like, what's kicking in? Is your doubt kicking in? Because the universe responds to frequency, right? So I
Mhm.
can have all these ideas and goals and dreams, but if I'm doubting it or doing all these other things, the universe just responds to frequency. It's our conscious mind that perceives, evaluates, judges, and decides about something, right? So the rest of it's subconscious. And you talked about it a minute ago, that first thing that comes to your head, we refer to it as a 5-second rule because that's pure subconscious information. But then our conscious mind will take over and it will want to make it make sense to you or logic and reason with it or run it through this storyline. And then I'll say it. But then we lose that pure information that's in there because it gets ran through our conscious mind. We have to perceive, evaluate, judge, and decide about it. And, Colby, I look at him in amazement, like he's come out and I can empathize with his struggles, right? We had our dream job, right? We were working together and teaching the material we were extremely passionate about and love so much and taking our son there and it was like our ultimate high, and then it just went away. And so it's like, what do we do now? And he comes out and starts 2 businesses and he's pressure washing and now he's a general contractor. And at the same time, he's experiencing what you experience, right? Going to work and doing construction. He's a speaker and he's an inspiration and he loves talking and teaching this stuff. And he's so amazing at it. He's like, what the heck am I doing construction? And bless him, I don't know where I'd be without him. Like, he took it to the max and it started this business and is extremely successful at it. But he has a hard time in his head because it's not lighting him up. And he was on All My Friends Are Felons podcast. And we recently had drove down to Vegas and sold his pressure washing trailer. And the lady had, Googled his name and then said, but then I listened to your podcast. And it's like, you can look up all these news stories of Colby and you can see that person, or you can hear his podcast and see who he is today, the real Colby. And it's like, that's part of your purpose, right? Yet another lady, right? Well, I was Googling my contractor and pulled all this stuff up, and then I heard your podcast. And so I'm so grateful for people like you and others that are doing these podcasts and giving a voice to these people, because their stories can help people and change people's perspective and give people opportunities to live from who they truly are, not the things that they've done,
Yeah.
and that just keeps showing up. And to me, like, each moment we show up in our lives, we're living our purpose, whether it's being kind to someone at the grocery store line that's having a hard day. Like, you don't know the ripple effect you're going to have on a person, right? We went and got a side by side the other day and talking to these people, and we'll tell them we're in recovery, and they're like, oh my gosh, our kids have been through it too. And we just put our granddaughter in a treatment center, and she's asking us all these questions. Like, when we're honest and own our story, it no longer dictates our life. It's part of our purpose and our power and our passion, because that person probably could use someone to talk to and fill some pieces. They've been through these things, and she's talking to me about going through cancer and these struggles. Now I realize how strong I am. I can get through anything, right? So she can use part of that to help her grandchildren as they go through their struggles and their growth, right? So it's
Yeah.
our purpose is in our daily lives and how we show up to them and the people we talk to. And when we own our stories and our truth instead of running from it and hiding from it, it takes that negative power away and it becomes powerful, right?
Absolutely.
It changes the vibrational frequency, because I can tell the same story in shame, or I can tell it in inspiration and power and purpose. It's the same story. It's just a matter of how I'm owning that authentically through my truth and how I show up with my story.
Yeah. And you said it, and how you verbiage it, right? Because if you're out
Mm-hmm.
there telling your story like, yeah, I'm the biggest loser, here I am, blah, blah, blah. Or you can get up there, like you said, with this passion and this drive and this love and this radiance. It changes everything, everything, and I've said this lots of times on my shows, I got to thank Dave DeRocher from the Other Side Academy,
Yeah.
because he's the one that opened my eyes, right? Last January. It's when I got to share a stage with this man when we did our first Healing Utah Success Summit. Well, you guys were down there in St.
Yeah.
George.
Yeah.
And, I talked to him afterwards, and it took from August to January of 2023 before we finally had a chance to sit down and talk. And man, he got right in my face and told me, you want to change, you want to be a powerful speaker, start telling your effing story instead of your wife's effing story. And it was something I was keeping a secret for a long time, right? Even though my guests
Yeah.
are coming on and being vulnerable, here I am not even being vulnerable. And that day that I did that, it flipping changed. I mean, Robin interviewed me, which was crazy. It happened the exact same day he told me that. Our guest didn't show. I asked her to be the host. I was the guest. She's like, Al, I was watching like all this weight just melt off of you.
Yeah.
Because, like you said, when you open up, nobody can dangle that carrot over your head ever,
Right.
ever again, because you've owned it.
Yeah.
It changes lives. It changes so many lives, and I've been so grateful to be able to do this show, because I've had about a half a dozen people come on as guests who actually have told their story for the very first time, and it all started by one other person being on the show that told their
Yeah.
story for the very first time. It's just snowballed from there.
Yeah. And having a multitude of people in their journeys, because a lot of us experience the same thoughts and emotions and can resonate with it, but our way of getting there is completely different, right? And so when we can find somebody that resonates with this, it and when we're vulnerable, it subconsciously gives others around us permission for them to be vulnerable. And it's such a beautiful thing that, that's the biggest thing about recovery. It's like, let me hear your story. Like, how did you get here? Like, and then let me lift you up and or hold space for you, whatever that looks like. It's people just need an opportunity to have someone to hold space for them, to
Yeah,
hear their story and let it out of them, because we're carrying all that for so long. Sometimes it just needs to get out, and you never know who it will affect. And at the same time, notice how much lighter it makes you instead of carrying around all that stuff. Let it out somewhere and let someone hold space as you let it out.
absolutely. You know, and I just want to give, a huge shout out to Janie. She's no longer
Yeah.
with us. However, that woman changed a ton of lives. She changed my life the first time I met her, right? I mean, seriously. Um, both of us get emotional because she such an amazing woman and done so many awesome things. And she's definitely dearly missed and will be for a long, long time. And the work that she's done has helped put you on your path, right? To
Yeah.
where now you're living her legacy. You're keeping her legacy alive, which is so amazing and so cool. And so are other people, right? There are other people
Yeah,
who
for
just
sure.
get into this and like, this is it, right? This is my why. I got it. Here it is. And now they're running with it. It's going to go on. It's going to go on forever. Her journey, what this woman went throughout her life, all her trials and errors, and
Yeah.
so much that led her to do what she ended up doing has changed so many people, and it's changing our world, right? It's nothing that you'll
Absolutely.
see on the news. However, it's changing people's lives.
Absolutely. There's truth in it. It's universal laws and principles. It's teaching you, it's I refer to it as an owner's manual for yourself, right? Owner's manual for your brain, then you got an owner's manual for your body, your linguistics, and then we're going to jump into physics and entropy and correspondence and the wholeness principle. It just builds upon it, and it's universal. And then taking these other modalities and adding to it with the foundation of, Janie's material and holographic human theory, like it just expands it for me, having the knowledge and information that I have today because of it, and gaining an understanding from studying, Max Planck and Albert Einstein and William Schumacher and all these people that Janie studied. Like, I'm such a nerd. I would go to her house and in her office, and I would take pictures of all the books she would buy, and then I'd go buy them and attempt to read some of them. Some of them are simpler than others. I
Yeah.
still got black body theory. I'm not there yet, Janie. I'll get there, but and it's just, and then taking it with these other modalities that I'm learning about and using that, it just builds upon it. And then it just opens up doors. I just got certified in Reiki, and using that with holographic human theory. It's so powerful. And through the study of, laying Janie's techniques out with sacred geometry, and working with the subconscious through sacred geometry, and it's it's helped me create the life that I get to live today. And I'm excited to nurture this more and harness it, because it's, Colby tells me, you're built to do this stuff, and just finally got my room office set up in my house to start doing Reiki sessions. And I did one today, and it's just like, it just comes so natural, and it's beautiful and it's amazing. And I love every minute of it. And at the same time, that self-doubt kicks in and just starts going. And it's like, got to redirect it and do these techniques and just stay present, step out of your own way and just do it. Cause that's been a goal of mine for anybody that's met me in the last 7 years, has heard me talk about doing this. And it's like, finally got out of my own way and did it. And at the same time, right now is the right time for it to happen,
Yeah.
and it, it just works out the way it works out.
And you're changing a generation, Whitney. I mean, seriously, you are, right? You have a son,
Yeah.
and you're teaching him these teachings, right? You and I talked about it a long time ago, right? I'm like, I can't I don't know how it's going to turn out, but I vision your son just being just so far ahead of everyone else. And it's because what you've gone through in your life, Janie's teachings, you're taking this, you're going with it as far as you can go with it. And now you're giving this to a young person where neither one of us had that opportunity, right? If we did, our lives could have turned out totally different at the beginning. However, this was our journey. This is how we were supposed to take it. Now you get to teach your son this stuff. I mean,
Yeah.
who knows where it will go from there, right? I mean, he could end up changing it into something just mind blowing, which this stuff is mind blowing as it is.
Yeah. And I used to ask Janie this all the time because I really struggled with like my ability to be a mom, and like just through the things that I went through and my experience or storyline, you know,
Yeah.
um, I didn't want to have a kid through my own thoughts of myself and my relationship with my mother and the way things played out. I'm like, I'm good. And so to have that, and I would ask Janie all the time, like, how do I teach my son this stuff? Like, what do you know, I want him raised in this. Like, I have this whole vision for him of like, you know, up teaching this stuff on stages and being involved with me and Colby doing this. And I said, how do I teach him this stuff? She goes, you be an example and a role model of it. When we push something onto someone, it creates resistance. But if we're just being it and it's a natural way of doing things, and I was like, oh my gosh, that makes so much sense. Like, hello, I know all this stuff. I teach all of this stuff, but when it's coming to me, I can't come up with that solution. It's just be it. Because it's not about teaching it, right? You said it in the beginning, all these people telling us how to do recovery and how to do this and that, it automatically creates resistance. But if I'm being an example and a role model of things, whether they're ready or not, they know who to come to, right? And we should all have role models, a multitude of role models. Because if I'm comparing myself to someone, that puts me in a bad spot for myself, right? But if I can model after different aspects that I admire in other people, and my recovery looks like recovering from my thoughts, my belief systems, my behaviors. It's not substances for me, although that dictated a huge part of my life. It was the beliefs and the programmings and stuff that got me to use the substances, because I was an equal opportunity of every substance known to man for decades. And so when I can listen to myself of why I use that substance, what was I looking for? To check out, to feel more confident going into these groups. I identify what my solution was, a substance, whether it was alcohol or cocaine or meth or heroin, pain pills, whatever. I use different substances as a solution for something. And when I listen to what that thing is, oh, to feel more confident, to, you know, release my inhibitions because I have anxiety. Okay, so instead of using that coping skill, now I have these ones that I can go in and do. I'm experiencing anxiety. I'm experiencing depression, right? I've just looked at a part of me that I have a different solution for today.
Yeah. Well, and my version of it too is God gave us all these feelings for a purpose, right? It's so
Mhm.
we can learn and become stronger. And society, especially with men, we're not supposed to, right? We're not supposed to cry. We're not supposed to have feelings. We're not supposed to feel sorry for people. We're just supposed to be this rugged, like the brute guy or whatever, and it's okay for us to feel these feelings. The trick is, though, let's make sure we don't get ourselves stuck there and stay there, right? Allow
Yeah.
yourself to go through whatever you're going through. Use the tools that we now have to let us get through it, and then start using those tools to start getting ourselves out of it. The next thing we know, we're on to a next journey.
Yeah. And if you don't have those tools, ask for some guidance. You know, when the student is ready, the teacher will appear, right? And if you don't have those coping skills yet, or you haven't integrated them into your way of life and being, then ask for guidance and they'll show up and be open to what you receive through who.
Yeah. Amen. Gosh, it's actually been over an hour, I think. Yeah, we're just about at the hour mark. And, if someone wants to work with you, Whitney, whether they're looking for some Reiki or something, how can they find you? And I want to make sure if you've got any kind of social media or whatever, please be sure that I get it so I can put it on the caption so people know how to
Okay.
contact you.
Yeah, just mostly right now through my Facebook and my email or Instagram. And I also started a Facebook page called the Holographic Human Community. It's, people interested in learning about holographic human or people that have learned, and just so we can come together and talk and, help each other
Okay.
through it
There's
and keep expanding our learnings.
there's some people that I need to introduce you to. Some people that I've just recently met, just amazing, amazing individuals. Two of them are in Canada, and then my friend Jessica that lives here in the valley too. She's amazing, and I think she'd really enjoy meeting you and talking with you, and hopefully we can get you to one of our ARC once we get ready.
Yeah.
We're gonna do one. It's either gonna be May or June when we're gonna hold our first one, and we want to put it together, and we want to hold it in different places across the valley, just
Yeah.
so people get to build those relationships, right? So, but yeah, please make
Yeah.
sure I have that stuff so I can get it on the caption. So if someone's looking at wanting to do some Reiki, and they know how to contact you to schedule an appointment.
Hey, awesome. Thank you so much, Al. I appreciate it. And it's always good to catch up with you and be on here. Thank you so much for what you do.
And thank you for what you do, and thank you for continuing to take Janie's work to infinity and beyond. Because I know that's probably what she was hoping for, and it's happening. Is there any last thing you'd like to share before we sign off?
Just follow what lights you up. If you don't have a solution, you're asking the wrong questions. Just listen to yourself, get in tune with yourself. And the word inspire is in spirit. And there's, you know, so many truths out there. Find the one that resonates with you and follow it.
Great advice. Really good advice. Well, again, guys, thank you. Thank you for all your support. All you listeners, man, you guys are the ones that's making this a success. You guys are the reasons why this show's been going on for 3 years. That and our guests, our past sponsors, guys, thank you. I love and appreciate you so much. And remember this, addiction is giving up everything for one thing, and recovery is giving up one thing for everything. We're out.